The NHL's Four Nations Faceoff is officially here, and today I'm going to be going through my predictions for who I think is going to win this entire tournament, as well as talk about the biggest question mark for each team that could potentially be their downfall in this event. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Teams have finally started to meet for media availability and practices for the Four Nations Faceoff in Montreal, and the first game is happening tonight between Team Canada and Team Sweden. And I can't even begin to explain how excited I am for this event. We haven't had an international best-on-best tournament since the World Cup of Hockey back in 2016, so I think it's safe to say that hockey fans have been waiting for this for a long time. But before we get into all of my predictions and the question marks for every team, if you guys have been enjoying the hockey content lately, make sure you go ahead and hit that like button now and subscribe to the channel. And with all that being said, let's start with the first team on my list, Team Finland. Finland has to be the most interesting team of the tournament, and there's a pretty obvious reason why. They were the underdogs going in, but with more recent news showing that Miro Heiskanen, Rasmus Ristolainen, and Jani Hakanpää would all be not going to the tournament because of injuries, it really does expose the fact that Finland doesn't have a defense that's going to be able to keep up with some of these other teams' forward groups. But that's the big question for Finland. Do they have enough size and defensive depth to make up for all of these injuries? Obviously, they have some of the best two-way players in the game, with Barkov and Aho both being on their top two lines. But still, I don't know if that's going to be enough to make up for the fact that they don't have a lot of defense on this team, and there's a lot of third or fourth options that likely wouldn't have made this team in any other scenario outside of injuries. I like Team Finland. They could be a surprise team in this tournament because obviously anyone has a chance, but if I had to pick where they would finish, I think they are going to finish last just because of all of the injuries that they sustained before the tournament even began. Next up is Team USA, and this is the one that I had the hardest time coming up with a question as to why they might lose this tournament. But if I had to pick one thing, and this is nitpicking, I think this team is going to severely miss not having Quinn Hughes on their roster. Now, Hughes is having a fantastic year, but unfortunately went down with an injury right before this tournament. And what he could have provided Team USA with was a dual threat defenseman who's crazy good on the power play, just adding a whole new element to their team's offensive and defensive flow. Now, this really shouldn't hurt Team USA all that much because, like I said, I'm nitpicking here. Their defensive core is still arguably the best in this tournament, and with their depth offensively and having the best goaltending trio, I think that it's safe to say that they're probably still going to be the best in this tournament and likely win it. But hey, a guy like Quinn Hughes, he's an X-Factor type of player, and losing him, it's not something that you can just easily replace. But this is the one thing I would have to say about Team USA. Like I said, I had a hard time finding anything, but I do really like Quinn Hughes and what he could have provided this team had he been in the tournament. Next up is Team Sweden, and like Team USA, I had a bit of a hard time coming up with a reason as to why they could potentially lose this tournament, and honestly, I feel like people are sleeping on them with the potential of this roster. But then as I started to dig a little bit deeper, I think there's one thing that I actually want to talk about today, and hear me out. Obviously, they have some crazy good wingers, with guys like Nylander and Forsberg both having incredible years. But if you look at their top two centers, this is where things are a little bit shaky. Zibanejad and Pettersson have both been involved in a ton of trade rumors this year. They're both not having the best year production-wise, and I think if they are unable to elevate their game against some of the competition like McKinnon, Crosby, Matthews, Eichel, then this is going to be a tough tournament for Sweden. Now, I expect that they're going to play at a high level, especially with some of their line mates, but it still is going to be a question mark for Sweden based on their play going into this tournament. I could be totally wrong here, but I would love to hear what you guys think about this. Are you confident in Zibanejad and Pettersson being your top two centers in this tournament? And do you think that they will have enough to really push Sweden all the way through and potentially win this one? Again, we're kind of nitpicking like Team USA, but I do think that this one has a little bit more legitimacy here, and that potentially it could hurt Sweden as they go throughout this tournament. And last but most certainly not least is Team Canada, and I think it's pretty obvious what their biggest weakness is, and that's their goaltending. Forward core is incredible, especially their high-end talent, McDavid, Crosby, McKinnon, and the list just goes on. Their defense also very impressive. You're going to miss Alex Pietrangelo, but Drew Doughty is a good fit here, so I don't think that that's going to hurt them all that much. But goaltending, you have Jordan Binnington being listed as your starter, Aiden Hill and Sam Montembeault being the backups. And I don't really think that this is going to be as bad as people are I don't even know how to say it, as bad as people are predicting, because I do think this tournament is going to be more about defense than it is going to be about goaltending. Yes, you want to have a solid guy between the pipes, which Jordan Binnington is good. Last year, he had some incredible numbers, and while they are a bit down this year, I do think that's more about the team he's playing for rather than his game. Usually, I think people underrate Jordan Binnington because maybe he's not likable, or maybe he's not as good as the goalies of the past for Canada, like the Prices, the Brodeurs, and everyone else who has put on that maple leaf. But I do think he's going to be a representable guy in this tournament, and I don't think it's going to hurt them all that much. But again, when we're looking at Team Canada, the biggest question for them, it's pretty obvious, especially when you compare it to some of the other teams in this tournament who all have incredible goalies in net. So that will be the biggest problem for Team Canada, and if they do lose this tournament, it could be a factor as to why. But these are my predictions for the Four Nations Face-Off. I know this is a bit of a different video, but I really wanted to come on here and talk about it because I'm just so excited about the tournament. My prediction is Team USA will win, then second place is going to be Sweden, third's going to be Canada, and fourth is going to be Finland. But let me know what you guys think. Who do you have winning in this tournament, and who's your biggest underdog, your sleeper pick that could potentially surprise us all? Thank you guys as always for watching the videos. Make sure you like this one and subscribe to the channel for more content. I will see you guys in the next episode.